The unexpected welcome. The Zephyrian Empire's fourth intimidation fleet materialized at the edge of the Sol system like a storm cloud of steel and malice. 3,000 warships arranged in their traditional crown of dominance formation, each vessel the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could crack continents. It was a sight that had brought 47 civilizations to their knees without a single shot being fired. On the bridge of the Zed's sovereign terror, Fleet Commander Cathara studied the primitive blue world through her tactical display. Her scaled hands traced patterns in the air as she reviewed the intelligence reports. A young species, barely 3 centuries into space travel. Their largest ships were laughably small compared to Zephyrian dreadnoughts. This would be another bloodless victory to add to her collection. Open a channel to the human homeworld, she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of 1,000 conquered systems. Meanwhile, on Lunar Station, Captain Alina Vasquez was having what might be the best day of her career. She sat in the command center, feet propped up on her console, watching the alien fleet's impressive display through the observation deck's massive windows. Around her, the skeleton crew of Lunar Station's Defense Coordination Center buzzed with an energy that wasn't quite panic and wasn't quite excitement. "Ma'am," called out Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, barely suppressing a grin. "We're receiving a transmission from the big scary fleet. They want to talk." Elena spun her chair round, her own smile growing wider. "Put them through, but first patch me into Earth Command. I want everyone to see this." The main screen flickered to life, revealing Fleet Commander Kithara in all her intimidating glory. 8 feet of armored reptilian warrior, surrounded by the harsh blue lighting of her command bridge. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Primitive humans of the planet Earth, I am Fleet Commander Cathara of the Zephyrian Empire's 4th Intimidation Fleet. You stand before 3,000 ships of war, each capable of reducing your pathetic world to molten slag. You have exactly 1 standard hour to surrender your planet, your resources, and your freedom to the Empire. Resist, and your species will become a cautionary tale." Alina looked around at her crew. Martinez was actually chuckling. Young Patel had put down his coffee to give the alien fleet a slow clap. Thompson was taking notes, probably for the memoir he'd been threatening to write. "Is there something amusing about your impending subjugation?" Cathara demanded, her tone sharpening as she noticed the humans' reactions. Alina stood up slowly, straightening her casual duty uniform. "Commander Cathara Wright. I'm Captain Alina Vasquez, and I have to ask you something important." She paused, her smile becoming almost sympathetic. "Did anyone in your empire bother to study human psychology before you came here?" Psychology, Kithara's translator struggled with the concept. What relevance could the mental workings of primitives have to military conquest? "Oh, quite a lot, actually," Elena replied, settling back into her chair. "You see, Commander, you've made a fundamental miscalculation about our species. Computer, display human historical battle data. Subset, glorious last stands." The screen split, showing a rapid montage of historical scenes. The 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, the defenders at the Alamo, Rorke's Drift, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, Stalingrad. Each image showed humans facing impossible odds with grim determination. "These are defeats," Cathara observed dismissively. "You show me your failures as if they were victories." The entire Lunar Station crew burst into laughter. Not nervous laughter, not defiant laughter, but genuine, delighted laughter. Lieutenant Torres leaned into his microphone. "Ma'am, with respect, those aren't defeats. Those are our favorite bedtime stories. Alina nodded enthusiastically. Commander, let me explain something about human psychology. Most species, when faced with overwhelming odds, surrender. It's rational, it's logical, it's sensible. She spread her hands. Humans aren't sensible. On the tactical display, the human response was unlike anything the Zephyrians had encountered. Instead of massing their meager fleet in defensive positions, instead of mobilizing their military, the humans were celebrating. Across Earth's networks, social media exploded with excitement. Hashtag alien invasion was trending, but not with panic. With anticipation. Are they, having parties? Whispered Kithra's tactical officer, studying the energy readings from Earth's major cities. Commander Alina continued, You brought 3,000 ships to intimidate us. But humans have a peculiar relationship with impossible odds. We don't see them as threats. We see them as opportunities to become legends. She gestured to her. Crew Martinez here has been waiting his entire career for something like this. His grandfather fought in the Mars Independence War, outnumbered 50-1, and still talks about it as the best day of his life. Thompson's been writing alternate history novels about alien invasions since he was 12. And me, Elena's smile, became predatory. I've been commanding defense stations for 20 years, and this is the first time someone's been polite enough to give us a proper challenge. Kithara felt something she hadn't experienced in decades of conquest, uncertainty. You speak as if you can resist the might of the Empire with your handful of ships. Resist. Alina laughed again. Commander, you're not understanding the situation. We're not going to resist. We're going to have fun. Across the Sol system, humanity's true defense network began to activate. Not the obvious warships and stations that the Zephyrians had catalogued, but something far more dangerous, human ingenuity. Unleashed by the promise of a good fight, the asteroid belt came alive with movement. What the Zephyrians had dismissed as mining operations revealed their true purpose. Thousands of hollowed-out asteroids began shifting position, their crude exteriors concealing sophisticated weapons, systems, and propulsion units. The humans had spent decades preparing for this day, not with grand fleets, but with creativity. Commander, reported Kithra's sensor officer. We're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system. It's as if the asteroids are ... moving on their own. On Lunar Station, Alina was just getting started. You know what I love about your empire, Commander? You think big. 3,000 ships, that's impressive. But you know what humans think when we see something that big and organized? She didn't wait for an answer. We think, I wonder what would happen if we disrupted just one little thing in that perfect formation. The first human asteroid reached the Zephyrian fleet's outer perimeter. To the alien sensors, it looked like a chunk of rock drifting on a predictable trajectory, right until it suddenly accelerated to near light speed and punched through 3 ships. Before anyone realized it wasn't a natural object. What was that? Kithara demanded. Railgun, Alina said cheerfully. We hollowed out a nice iron-heavy asteroid, filled it with engines and guidance systems, and turned it into a kinetic weapon. We've got about 2,000 more just like it, scattered throughout the belt. Oh, and Commander. Elena's expression became almost apologetic. We've been listening to your communications for the past hour, your fleet formation data, tactical frequencies, even your personal logs. You really should encrypt better. The Zephyrian fleet, designed to intimidate through overwhelming display, suddenly found itself scattered across 3-dimensional space as captains tried to avoid what appeared to be an army of weaponized asteroids. Their perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships collided with each other, trying to evade targets that seemed to come from every direction at once. But Alina wasn't done. "You want to know the really funny part, Commander? We could have just sent you a polite message asking you to leave. 90% of human space is empty anyway. We would have been happy to negotiate trade agreements, cultural exchanges, maybe even mutual defense pacts." A second wave of human weapons revealed themselves. What the Zephyrians had catalogued as communication satellites around Earth suddenly sprouted weapon arrays and defensive shields. Each one was small, individually, insignificant, but there were tens of thousands of them, and they all opened fire simultaneously. "But you came here with guns drawn and threats ready," Alina continued, her voice taking on an edge that made even her own crew straighten up. "You told us you were going to destroy our world, enslave our people, and erase our civilization. And that, Commander Cathara, was a mistake." The Zephyrian flagship shuddered as concentrated fire from 100 satellite weapons found their mark. Cathara gripped her command chair as damage reports flooded in from across her fleet. "This is impossible," she snarled. "We outnumber you 1,000 to 1. Alina stood up again, her casual demeanor replaced by something far more dangerous. "Commander, let me teach you about human mathematics. You brought 3,000 ships because you thought numbers would intimidate us. But humans don't count ships. We count opportunities." She gestured to the tactical display showing the chaos engulfing the Zephyrian fleet. "Every one of your ships is a puzzle to solve, a challenge to overcome, a story to tell our grandchildren. You didn't bring an invasion fleet. You brought us. The greatest gift imaginable, a chance to prove that humanity doesn't back down." Through the observation deck windows, Alina could see the first of Earth's actual warships beginning to launch. Sleek vessels that had been hidden in the shadows of Luna, built not for intimidation but for efficiency. They moved like sharks through the confused Zephyrian formation, striking precisely and vanishing before return fire could be coordinated. "Last chance," Commander Alina said, settling back into her chair with the satisfaction of someone who had just solved a particularly challenging puzzle. "You can withdraw your fleet, and we'll be happy to discuss peaceful relations. Or you can continue this course of action and find out what happens when you give humans a reason to stop playing nice." The screen flickered as Cathara's ship took another hit. Through the static, Alina could see the alien commander's expression, changing from arrogance to something approaching fear. "You cannot defeat the Empire," Cathara declared, but her voice had lost its earlier certainty. "This fleet is merely the first of many." Alina's smile returned, bright and predatory. "Commander, you still don't understand. This isn't about defeating your empire. This is about showing you that humans are not prey animals. We're not going to cower in fear of your threats. We're going to laugh at them, overcome them, and then send you home with a story that will keep your children awake at night." Around Luna Station, the human defense network continued its deadly dance. Asteroids carved through Zephyrian formations. Satellite networks created killing fields of intersecting fire, and through it all, the humans maintained their inexplicable good cheer, as if this were all some elaborate game designed for their entertainment. The communication channel crackled with interference as Cathara's flagship took heavy damage. This is not how conquest works," she whispered, more to herself than to Alina. "No," Alina agreed gently. "This is how humans work. Welcome to the Sol System, Commander. Population, stubborn. Asterisk when humans stop playing nice. The situation aboard the ZES Sovereign Terror had devolved from confident conquest to barely controlled panic. Fleet Commander Cathara watched her tactical display in growing horror as her perfectly organized intimidation fleet scattered like frightened fish. Damage reports flooded in from across her formation, and worse than the material losses was the psychological impact on her crews. "Ma'am," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving surrender demands from multiple human positions. They're asking us to surrender to them." Kithra's scaled hands clenched into fists. In 3 decades of conquest, no species had ever turned the tables so completely. She had arrived expecting to dictate terms to a primitive civilization, and instead found herself outmaneuvered by what appeared to be an entire solar system turned into a weapons platform. On Lunar Station, Captain Alina Vasquez was coordinating what she privately thought of as the most educational first contact in human history. The Zephyrians were learning valuable lessons about underestimating their opponents, while humanity was getting its first real-world test of the defense systems they'd been building for generations. "Torres, what's the fleet status?" she called out to her communications officer. 80% of their ships have taken some degree of damage, Captain. They're trying to regroup, but our asteroid network keeps disrupting their formations. It's like watching someone try to herd cats while the cats have rocket launchers," Elena chuckled. "And our casualties? 3 satellites offline, 1 asteroid gun overheated and needs cooling. And Martinez spilled coffee on his console when that last salvo hit their flagship." "Tragic losses," Alina said solemnly, then broke into another grin. "Patch me back through." To their commander, the screen flickered back to life, showing Kithra's bridge in a state of organized chaos. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the alien commander herself looked far less imposing than she had an hour earlier. Commander Cathara Alina said pleasantly, "How are you enjoying your visit to our solar system? Your resistance ends now." "Primitive," Cathara snarled, though Alina noticed the threat lacked its earlier conviction. "We have reinforcements coming. The Empire's 5th and 6th fleets are already en route." Elena's eyebrows rose with genuine interest. "More fleets, Commander. You're spoiling us. How many ships are we talking about?" 20,000 vessels of war. Your pathetic tricks will not work twice." The Lunar Station crew exchanged glances that were equal parts excitement and disbelief. Alina had to hold up a hand to quiet the cheers that erupted around the command center. 20,000, Alina repeated thoughtfully. "You know, Commander, I think you've just made humanity's day, maybe our year." She leaned forward in her chair. "But let me ask you something important. Do you really want to escalate this? Escalate?" Cathara laughed, a harsh sound that didn't translate well. "You think you have seen escalation? This was merely our standard intimidation protocol. You have not yet faced the true might of the Zephyrian Empire." Elena's expression shifted, her casual friendliness replaced by something colder and far more dangerous. When she spoke again, her voice carried a new edge that made everyone on Lunar Station pay attention. "Commander, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You see, what you've experienced so far, this wasn't us fighting back. This was us being polite." She gestured to her tactical officer. "Thompson, show the commander what happens when humans stop being polite." The display shifted to show a new section of space near Jupiter. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly erupted with activity as massive structures uncloaked themselves. Shipyards the size of small moons, their construction bays filled with vessels that made the Zephyrian dreadnoughts look like toys. "Those are our actual warships," Commander Alina explained conversationally. We've been building them in secret for 60 years, ever since our first radio telescopes detected signs of a galaxy full of potentially hostile civilizations. The vessels emerging from Jupiter's shadow were unlike anything in the Zephyrian database. Sleek, organic-looking ships that seemed to bend light around them. Massive carriers that launched swarms of smaller vessels like angry hornets. And at the center of it all, something that could only be described as a mobile battle station, bristling with weapons systems that Zephyrian science couldn't even identify. Cathara stared at the display in growing disbelief. This is impossible. Our intelligence indicated you had barely achieved interstellar flight. Oh, we did, Elena confirmed. 300 years ago. We've been busy since then. See, Commander, humans have this peculiar tendency to prepare. For the worst-case scenario, when we realized there were other species out there, we didn't just build pretty ships to explore and trade. We built the kind of fleet you'd need if everyone else in the galaxy turned out to be hostile. The human battle fleet began moving with a coordination that put this Zephyrian formation to shame. Ships flowed around each other in complex patterns, creating overlapping fields of fire that could annihilate anything caught within them. The thing is, Elena continued, we really didn't want to use these ships. They represent decades of resources, scientific advancement, and engineering innovation that we would have preferred to spend on hospitals, schools, and colonies. But you forced our hand. Kithora's tactical officer was frantically running calculations. Ma'am, the energy readings from their largest ship alone exceed our entire fleet's combined output. And there are dozens of them. Elena heard the whispered report through the open channel. Actually, Commander, we have hundreds of them. What you're seeing is just the Jupiter flotilla. We have similar installations around Saturn, Uranus, and in the Kuiper Belt. Earth's children have been busy while you were conquering easier targets. The implications hit Cathara like a physical blow. This wasn't a primitive species barely reaching for the stars. This was a civilization that had been preparing for galactic warfare since before the Zephyrian Empire had conquered its first world. You let us attack you, Cathara whispered. You could have destroyed us the moment we entered your system. Elena nodded. We could have, but humans prefer to give people chances to be better than they are. We hoped you might be reasonable. We hoped you might be interested in peaceful contact. Her expression hardened. You chose to threaten our children instead. The human fleet had completed its deployment. 3,000 Zephyrian ships now faced 10,000 human vessels that outclassed them in every measurable way. But Elena wasn't done with her revelations. Computer, show Commander Cathara what humanity has been working on for the past century. The display shifted again, this time showing the edge of the solar system. Space itself seemed to shimmer and bend, revealing massive installations that defied conventional physics. Structures that appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, connected by energy bridges that made the space around them ripple like water. Dimensional engineering, Elena explained. We've been building in parallel universes, Commander. What you're seeing is just the three-dimensional shadow of constructs that exist across 11 dimensions. Each one is a gateway to a different version of our solar system, all of them heavily armed and very, very protective of baseline humanity. Kithara's confidence finally shattered completely. What are you? Elena's smile returned, but it was a predator's smile now. We're humans, Commander. We're the species that looked at a galaxy full of potential threats and said, challenge accepted. We're the people who spent 3 centuries preparing for the worst possible day while hoping it would never come. She stood up, her casual demeanor replaced by the bearing of someone accustomed to command in the most dangerous situations imaginable. You brought 3,000 ships to intimidate us. In response, we've revealed the existence of technologies and defenses that your empire couldn't overcome if you brought every ship you have. The communication channel crackled with interference as more human systems came online. Reality itself seemed to bend around the human installations as they prepared for full activation. But here's what's going to happen, Commander Alina continued. You're going to turn your remaining ships around and leave our system. You're going to return to your empire and explain that humanity is not available for conquest. And if you're very, very smart, you're going to suggest that your leaders might want to discuss peaceful relations with us. Cathara found her voice, though it was barely a whisper. And if we refuse? Elena's expression became almost pitying. Commander, you've seen what happens when humans are being polite and giving you chances to do the right thing. Do you really want to find out what happens when we stop? Around Lunar Station, space itself began to change. The asteroid belt rearranged itself into geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The outer planets shifted slightly in their orbits, revealing that they weren't entirely natural anymore. And from beyond the edge of the system, something vast and impossible began to approach. That's the Earth Defense Grid's full activation protocol, Alina explained quietly. We've never actually tested it before, because the energy requirements would probably sterilize half the galaxy. But you've given us a reason to consider extreme measures. The approaching object resolved into something that made the human battle fleet look small by comparison. A construct the size of a moon, but clearly artificial. Its surface covered in geometric patterns that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. What is that? Cathara breathed. That's what happens when a species spends 300 years being paranoid about alien invasion, Alina said, simply. It's called the last resort, and it's designed to ensure that if humanity falls, we take our attackers with us, all of them. The massive construct took position at the edge of the solar system, its presence causing space-time distortions that the Zephyrian sensors couldn't properly analyze. Energy readings spiked beyond their instruments. The ability to measure, Elena's voice became gentle again, almost maternal. Commander, humanity doesn't want to be your enemy. We'd much rather be your trading partners, your allies, your friends, but we will not be your victims. The choice is entirely yours. On the Zephyrian flagship, damage control teams worked frantically to restore basic systems while Cathara stared at the impossible reality surrounding her fleet. 24 hours ago, she had been the confident commander of an unstoppable force. Now she was barely holding together the remnants of a fleet that had stumbled into something far beyond their understanding. We withdraw, she whispered. Elena's smile became warm and genuine again. Excellent choice, Commander. Safe travels, and please let your leaders know that Earth's door is always open to peaceful visitors. As the surviving Zephyrian ships limped toward the edge of the system, Alina turned to her crew. Well, that was educational. Anyone want to bet on whether they'll send those reinforcements? Lieutenant Torres grinned. I hope they do, ma'am. I've got vacation time saved up, and that looked like fun. Alina laughed, settling back into her chair as the human battle fleet began returning to their hidden positions. Torres, remind me why I love this job. Because we're the good guys with the biggest guns in the galaxy. Exactly. Alina watched the last of the Zephyrian fleet disappear into hyperspace. Computer, Send a message to Earth Command. First contact protocols completed. Successfully. Recommend we start preparing welcome packages for any peaceful visitors who might want to drop by. Around Lunar Station, the impossible defenses of humanity slowly powered down, reality returning to its normal configuration. But somewhere in the dark between the stars, the message was already spreading. Humanity was not prey. They were predators who preferred to be gardeners, but they were very, very good at both. Asterisk.